Good morning, developers. If you are new to the channel, my name is Rob, and in this video, I'm going to take you through the process I go through to set up my local anytime I'm going to make a new app that uses React and Socket.io together. Initially, I made this video specifically for WebRTC because I use Socket.io for my signaling server. WebSockets are great. I happen to use Socket.io, and I've got a video on the differences. If you want to check it out, it'll be in the description. But I got to the end, and really there was very little WebRTC that we actually did, and I thought this would be useful to two groups of people. One, you are just going to do React and Socket.io. You don't care about WebRTC. This will help you get into position to where everything is set up so that you can start coding. It's not perfect. It's certainly not the only way, but it will get you to the point where React is running on HTTPS, your Socket.io and your Express server are running on HTTPS, and you are all set up and ready to go. If you're making a WebRTC app, everything I just said still applies. We will also add Adapter.js in, and then at the very end of the video, we will test this out with getUserMedia. Whether you were referred to this from one of my videos or whether you were just searching and you just want to see how somebody else does it, I hope this is really helpful because it can be very intimidating when you need to get started and you don't know all of the moving pieces that aren't related directly, I guess, to the coding or the implementation details that you're used to. I am passionate about both of these technologies, Socket.io and WebRTC, and React too, I guess, but there are already zillions of videos on that, so it's more common. But this is a very common starting point where we will end for me. I make lots of videos on this. And we could put this at the beginning of every single one of those videos, but that's going to get repetitive. It's very time consuming, as you will find out. Or we could put it in one place that I can try and keep the code updated. We can handle very specific issues that you might run into here rather than spreading that out over all of the other implementation details that come with making a project in one of these. So that, again, is really what this video is all about. I could not bring myself to just give you a GitHub link in one of those videos and say, hey, go download this. Everything's already set up and ready to go. I can't stand it when people do that to me and don't explain it, so I can't do that. So that is the plan. We're going to run create React app, and I say that because when we do the HTTPS part, it's going to be specific to create React app, meaning the commands we're going to run to get it running on HTTPS. And that is required for WebRTC because you can't use getUserMedia outside of a secure context. I'm sure there are some browsers that will let you do that on localhost, but it's just not worth it anymore. The Socket.io setup is going to listen to an Express server. It will be very basic. It will just, again, everything here is meant to get you started. Let's go take a look at our task list quick. These are going to be our steps. We're going to use create React app. If you use Next or Redux Toolkit Generator, something like that, that's perfectly fine. But I still use create React app. The reason I bring that up is because the HTTPS directions I give you will be specific to create React app. We'll do it two different ways, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Again, anything is fine, but for HTTPS, you'll have to figure it out on your own if you don't use it. Adapter.js, we're going to include that. We're going to set up an Express and Socket.io server for signaling, and we will do that with HTTPS as well. And then we will do just a getUserMedia test at the very end. I will segment all of these into chapters so that if you want to skip ahead to whatever is relevant to you, you can. This first one is a good example. There's a good chance you already know how Create React App works. If you don't, down at the bottom here, this is how you can install it. You can also use -G to install it globally. But up here, I'm going to copy this, come over to PowerShell. I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to change my folder name to WebRTC-starter. And just make a quick note here while this is running, and I'm going to have to pause because there are so many node modules to run. You do have to have Node.js installed to do this. Webpack requires it, which is what Create React App uses, and so does our Express server, and Socket.io is going to use Node, so that's not optional. You will need Node installed. I'll meet you back here when it's done. Mine has finished. I would like you to open up the folder that we just created in your code editor. For me, that is Visual Studio Code. Anything you want to use is fine, but I bring that up because VS Code has a terminal built in, and this is where I'm going to be working on PowerShell, Mac, Linux, whatever you've got is of course fine as well. But just make note of that. Your directory structure should look something like this, if not exactly like that. And we need to make sure that it installed correctly. So I'm going to run npm start to make sure that it did. And we get the very friendly Create React App loading screen. So hopefully you've got something like this. Naturally, it is not secure. This is regular HTTP because that's how it comes by default. We want to switch that over. And hopping over to the docs here in Create React App using HTTPS in development, with React scripts 0.4.0 or higher, you will be able hopefully to use one of these commands. So on the old Windows command prompt, it's this. PowerShell, it is this. So I'm going to copy this, and on Linux or Mac OS, it will be this. And this you'll run directly in the terminal. So back over here, I'm going to kill the server, and I am going to paste in that command. It's going to fire the server back up. And if I come back over here and refresh this page, it doesn't work anymore because it's not running on HTTP. It's now running on HTTPS, and it will freak out and say, hey, your connection's not private. The certificate's not valid. Click on this up here, and sure enough, it's not valid because they just created it. If you click on advanced and proceed to localhost, you should be able to keep moving. This will probably work. And I say probably because sometimes it does for me and sometimes it doesn't. In case it doesn't, and because I don't like having to type this goofy command, I'm used to typing npm start, I'm going to show you how to do this, where we can modify package.json in order to get the command, in order to fire up HTTPS. If this works for you, you don't need to watch the rest of this chapter because it won't be relevant. This is okay, and we'll do the job just fine. Otherwise, if we hop over here to the mkcert page, this is the npm page. It creates self-signed TLS certificates without OpenSSL. That is what we just did a second ago with that command. OpenSSL is the industry standard, but it's total overkill for this. We're already using Node. Mkcert is a Node module, so this is a really easy way to do it. If you copy this command here, come back over, I'm going to kill the server, and I'm going to paste that in. Make note, this is going to install it globally. So if you don't like installing Node modules globally, you have to figure that out on your own. It should take no time because, at least right now, there's only 2 dependencies, so that's always nice. It's 2 steps to create a certificate. We need to create a certificate authority, and that's this part here. Don't include the -- help because we don't want to see all this stuff. We want to actually run this command. So coming over here, I'll open up the file structure. I'm going to paste it. Keep an eye over here. I hit enter. We get 2 new files. Now that we have a certificate authority, we're going to run create-cert. Going to paste that in here, and we will get 2 more new files. So these are the certificates we're going to use. They are based on this certificate authority, which we just issued. I do not want these files here, though. They are in the root of my React app, and I don't like that. So I'm going to create a folder called Certs. Some people call it SSL, TLS, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to move them if you don't want to, but I do not want them there. So I'm going to get them out of there. Now that we have those set up, I'm going to go to package.json. And if you scroll down a little bit, under the scripts property, there is a start. When you run npm start, this is what is actually going to run. We come back over here to the docs. We have to pass it HTTPS equals true, and then we pass it the path. So I'm going to copy everything but npm start. Hop back over here. I'm going to leave this part, and I'm going to paste the rest. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can see all of that. It's HTTPS equals true. SSLCRT file equals, instead of cert.crt, it's going to be /certs/ because we put it inside of the search directory. Depending on your OS, you may need to change the slashes around or wherever you need to go to get to that file. And then for the second one here, instead of just cert.key, it's going to be /certs/cert.key. This is what you will need for a Mac or for Ubuntu or whatever. We have to make a slight change though for PowerShell. At the beginning, I'm going to put set, and I'll zoom back in here. Set goes at the beginning, space. And then after true, we get rid of this space and put 2 ampersands because we want to run another command. We need another set, so it looks like this. I'm going to skip forward a little bit further. This space we have to get rid of with 2 ampersands, and then the word set again, because we want to set this file. And then lastly, this space needs to turn into 2 ampersands, and it will finally run this command with all of this in front of it. Okay, so saving that, back over one more time and run npm start. It fires the server up. And here we are. Once again, the certificate changed, so it freaks out and says, hey, it's not private, advanced. Up here, right, the certificate's not valid. We just made it. So click proceed, and you should get this loaded up. If you have any errors, work through them. The most common one by far is going to be that you made a mistake in this ridiculous line here. But as I said, it's really nice. If you're going to be running npm start all the time, it's nice to have it already in here. Okay, we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to kill the server one last time, and we're going to npm install socket.io-client. That's the next thing we're going to do, and we are going to need this node module in order to get it. So please run that. npm start one last time to make sure that your server is running. And then I'm going to come back over to the terminal window, and I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to call it WebRTC signaling. What we are about to do here is make a completely separate node server. Create React App manages the front end. It is a node server all its own. We are about to make our signaling server, which again is going to use socket.io, and this is a completely separate server. We're going to have separate code bases, separate processes, etc. Okay, so open up this folder however you need to in your code editor, and then go down into that folder, so WebRTC signaling, and I want you to run npm init-y. This will create a package.json file for us because we're going to install some node modules, and while we're here, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do npm install socket.io. We need that module if we're going to make a socket.io server, and then we'll do npm install express. So those are our 2 node modules. Please open up that folder, WebRTC signaling, in your code editor. Again, this is an entirely separate code base, separate structure, everything. You can see over here we got the node modules, we got package.json all ready to go. We're going to make a new file called server.js. And this will hopefully go pretty fast. We're going to do const fs equals require fs. And we need the file system module to load up our HTTPS certs. Const HTTPS equals require HTTPS. Naturally, we need HTTPS ... for HTTPS. Const express. We are going to require express. We just installed that. We don't need to install these 2 because they're already part of Node.js core. Const app equals, we are going to invoke the express module we just brought in on line 3. That gives us an express app to work with. Now we're going to do const secure express server equals https .create server. We hand this our key and our cert. So we need to make those. So let's drop in here, read in our certs. To do that, we got to come over to the terminal again. So however you need to get here, I'm going to run those exact same 2 lines we ran a little bit ago. It is make cert create-ca, and then make cert create cert. That will create the same 4 files, though they're different, or the contents are different. Once again, I don't want those at the root level, so I'm going to make a folder called certs. Copy those into certs. Minimize that. Get rid of this. And now we can put them to good use. We'll do const key equals fs.read file sync. So we're using the fs module which we got on line 1, and we're going to use read file sync because we want this to happen synchronously. We're going to block our program to make sure that it's read. It'll be ./certs/cert.key. Copy this line, drop it on the next, and we're going to do cert. And instead of cert.key, it's cert.crt. These 2 things, we're going to take our key and our cert, and we're going to pass them into the object here. So create server, these are our keys, comma, app. So we're going to pass it as our second thing, the Express app, which is going to listen for HTTPS traffic, and these are our certificates. Right after this, we can grab our Express server, do a .listen, and I'm going to put it on port 9000. Pick whatever port you want. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to run nodemon on server.js. If you don't have nodemon, you can check it out. It's just a convenient way to run node programs so they restart. We can test it out by coming over to localhost 9000, go to HTTPS, because that's where we're listening. It's going to do the same thing that we've seen a couple times, right? The certificate's not valid. Click advanced, proceed, and if you get this, that means it's working. We don't have any express routes, so it's not gonna work any other way, but that is what we're looking for. Work through any errors that you might have, and we can go forward now. Right below our app, we're going to do const socket.io equals require socket.io. That is the socket.io module, of course. Down below, we'll do const io equals, use the socket.io module, which we just required. We're going to hand it our secure express server, comma, and then we are going to hand it an object with two properties. Cores, which is going to be an array, and then methods, which is also going to be an array. Inside of cores, I'll put a note here, the domains that are allowed. And at the very least, you're going to need localhost and then whatever port your React app is running on. By default, it's 3000. If you've got more than one running, sometimes it's nice to do that. Whatever you need to put in there, put in there. For methods, I'm going to put in get and post. Whatever methods you need are fine. Down at the bottom here, I'm going to do listen for the connection event to our socket server. So IO, what is IO? That's the socket.io server we just made. So io.on, just like all JavaScript listeners, it's just a .on. What event? The connection event. What callback do you want to run? We'll call the thing we got back socket. And in here we'll just console.log socket.id has joined. Okay? This line should run anytime someone connects to our socket server, which is how we are essentially testing this. So coming back over here, it hasn't run yet. Back over to our other code base, we're going to open up SRC and we are going to go to app.js. We need to do two things. We need to do the Adapter.js part, which we skipped so that we could get this set up, and we're going to connect to our server. So back over to NPM, this is the WebRTC adapter page. It has under 20,000 downloads, so this is an important module. It is a shim, and if you don't know what a shim is, I have a video on that. It's very short that just kind of describes what it is. But WebRTC is a JavaScript API, but it's implemented in a bunch of different browsers. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. Right? Edge on a brand new desktop versus Safari on an old iPhone, they're going to be a little bit different. And that's what this thing's job is, to try and make them as consistent as possible. It isn't perfect, but even in 2024, it is still very much worth having. So we are going to have to npm install a WebRTC-adapter. So back over here, I was wrong. We have to kill our server one more time. Paste that in. It will fetch the adapter for us. This time, run npm start one last time. The way that this works, all you have to do is import it. You don't have to do anything special. Just anytime you're going to use WebRTC inside of a component, just include this line. No further action required. If you want to look at more details, there's a few notes here. They're not important for us at the moment. But we are going to come back over to app, and we're going to do two things. We're going to drop that line in, and I'll make a note here. The adapter makes WebRTC play better across browsers. So that's thing one. Thing two is we need to import IO from, we did this earlier, socket.io client. And I'll make that node get the IO object from socket.io. We're going to take the IO Let's come down here. Actually, let's import one more thing. We will import use state from React, and we'll set up a use state hook like so. And we're only going to want this to run on load. So we make that note, run on load. We're going to do io.connect, and we're going to hand it the location of our socket.io server, which is at https://localhost 9000. That should do the trick of trying to connect. So if we go back over to our app, refresh it, and open up the console, make sure there's no errors. More importantly, if we come over to our signaling server, you should see some chatter in the terminal window because this event is happening. Somebody's connecting. It doesn't know who and it doesn't care. It happens to be our React app has hit our socket.io server. Okay? It is possible that you will get an error down here that the certificate is not valid. If that happens, you come back over here and you add a second parameter, which is an object, and it is reject unauthorized. You would set that flag to false. The default, of course, is true. I'm going to make a note here, only okay for local. This would not be safe in production. You would never use this. We're setting it up so that it's okay locally to fix that error. So again, refreshing this, it should work. Hopefully, I'll work through any errors that you might have. The very last thing we're going to do to be able to test this out, try getUserMedia. So we'll do const stream equals, go to the navigator object. If you have to put window in front of that, you can. We don't need to though. Navigator.mediadevices.getUserMedia, open close. Let's hand it video true and audio true. And I'll go back over to the browser. It has already refreshed. I cannot allow because I'm already using the camera and the mic to record this. But if this goes through, all has gone well. Make sure you don't have any errors. Make sure that it's not trying to block it or something because, again, we're running HTTPS on both sides. Everything is secure, and you are ready to do some development with React, with WebRTC, with Socket.io. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.